Okay.
Gotta rake in that ad revenue.
Every penny of it. Every penny of it. Let let's make sure that we go and we put it up on Facebook too. Yeah.
Oh my god.
God damn it. Welcome everyone to the very first segment of Something Wicked This Way Comes. I am Zanaris, as many of you know me as the DM for our Legion games every Thursday. But today, I am your detective, your investigator, and your reporter. You can call me Daniel if you like my actual name. And I'm here today to go and talk to you about the wicked things, wicked people, wicked events, things that have happened that make you question ourselves as people. Today's topic will actually be on some of the lesser known female serial killers, their objectives, their reasons, and maybe to get a little bit of understanding of why they do the things that they do, and some of the primordial differences between them and male serial killers. Now, I will definitely go and tell you there are differences in ways that I did not comprehend at the beginning, but that's what we're here to go and talk about today. And I actually have some folks here to go and bounce off of, and we're just going to be talking. I go and I have my intrepid editors, and Emily Francisco, say hi.
Hello.
And we also have a guest speaker by the name of Frogs. Frogs, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. I'm here. Hi.
That's fantastic. So we wanted to get a chance to give the community a little bit of all those folks that are going to follow us in Discord and stuff like that, an opportunity to be able to join in and talk, be kind of a soundboard off of us. All of the information that will be cited here will actually have actual citations that you'll be able to go and solicit from us, and a lot of it is from scientific articles that I've had to go and steal, cry, and beg for. So it's things like that, and
Because those aren't cheap. Those are not
they
cheap.
are very, very expensive. Um, but with that being said, I'm actually going to hand you over to M to go and do some channel business. M?
Sure. Hello, all my lovelies. Welcome to Frankly I Don't Give a Fork's channel. Just wanted to say thank you so much for coming in. I see we've got a couple of viewers here. And for anyone who's
Hi.
watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're watching on Twitch, please follow and subscribe, or follow and subscribe. And please do not give us your physical money. Please, if you want to help us, make Amazon Bezos pay for it. So make sure you link up your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. You get free games that way, Prime Gaming, and then you can also every month share the wealth with other people or continue sharing the wealth with us and get more emojis. Other ways to support us is we have a Patreon, and I want to say thank you so much to our Patreon at Grimjaw. I apologize. I always pronounce it wrong. Thank you so much for supporting us, and the best way to support us is to join our Discord. That is how we met Frogs.
Yes.
He actually joined our Discord server. It's free to do. We do community nights. And it's a lot of fun actually getting to meet you. And if you are interested in joining our community, we actually like to do outreach with our members because we do this because of you, because we're 100% supported by you guys. I mean, this is how we got Daniel his new microphone after his exploded. Not literally. Not literally.
After I murdered it with my voice.
Your sensual voice. But some news that is coming up, if you guys haven't been around in a little bit, Francisco and I have just moved. We are now in Pennsylvania right now, and we will be moving into our...
I don't know why that made me laugh, but it did.
And we will be moving into our apartment on the 15th, so we don't know what day we'll be working. Francisco will be starting a new job, so our Legion, we're going to have to figure out what day works best with him because he gets only one day off a week. But so we will get that out to you as soon as we know when that's going to be. But thank you for the people that have messaged about safe trips. Thank you so much. It's really sweet of you. And we love you guys. And I will hand you back over to Daniel now.
Now, with that being said, take a moment, sit down, and relax while I fill up your ears with horrible, horrible things. Before we begin, a trigger warning. This episode will contain some very unpleasant things. There'll be talk about mental health issues, there'll be talk about abuse of various kinds, and murder. So, with that being said, before we begin, if you can't deal with any of that, take a moment, maybe watch some of our lighter fare, and feel free to go and come back at another time. But with that, I'd like to go and talk to you about some of the lesser known female serial killers. Now, the issue with that was, it's weird. Female serial killers actually aren't as well known as you'd go and think. As a matter of fact, there is a study of the past few years that right now in the United States at least, there's just 64 confirmed serial killers of the modern age that are female. And you would go and think that they'd be different when it's compared to the 300 some odd that we have that are male. So to help you kind of understand a little bit the key differences between serial killer, spree killer, things like that. So I want you guys to go and understand that if serial killer is someone that kind of has like that, they take various victims, usually, and sometimes, from my understanding, it has to be more than two victims to be able to go and be placed as a serial killer.
Yep, over an
Now,
extended period of time.
Over extended period of time.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, we will definitely go and have killers that we'll talk about today that killed groups of people in one hit, but a lot of cases they kind of think about those as in mass killers. So now the thing that kind of piqued my interest the most was the differences, and it reminded me of something that a friend told me once a long time ago. We were speaking about Frida Coelho, and her horrible, horrible husband. If any of you have ever done any research on her, her husband was a scumbag. But she wrote letters about him with such exquisite love and care. But she also spoke about how she hated him a little bit. And the biggest, I guess you could say, almost joke to it was, my friend looked at me and said, well, then you have to understand. Men kill women because they love them. A woman kills a man because she fucking hates you. And it made me think. And as I began to go and look, I actually had some really, really, really wild information about that, because it is actually, and there is, and we're going to be citing a few articles here. So now there is an article called I that is put out by the by Psyche. It's a psychological institute, and they actually talk about that. So and these are just some of the numbers that they mention. So it literally goes and states that, and from here on in, everybody, instead of saying female serial killer, so we're not filling up the whole thing, we're going to say FSK. So if you get lost in the abbreviation, please let me know.
Yeah.
It in this study over these 64 known serial killers within this area of America, 93% of them personally knew their victims, meaning they didn't hunt. And there is another article that goes and talks about that. One of the key differences between that, and it's from Marissa A. Harrison and Susan A. Hughes on 6 differences in serial killers, evolutionary behavioral sciences in 2019. The study was based on data of 55 females and 55 male serial killers in the U.S. After analyzing data, they found that male serial killers were almost 6 times as likely to kill a stranger. Female serial killers were nearly twice as likely to kill a person they already knew. Additionally, 65.4% of male serial killers stalked their victims, compared to 3.6% of female serial killers. Meaning, they had to have a little bit of hate. That distinction almost. And you'll notice as we begin to go and talk about it, a lot of the methods that are used by FSKs are poisoning, strangulation, and in some cases we have extreme violence. And one of the things I want to go and talk about is that do not for a moment believe that an FSK is incapable of horrific violence.
It
Happens.
it doesn't really surprise me that much that these FSKs had to have known, or more likely to have known someone, just because coming from a rape survival and getting obsessed with learning about that, the majority amount of female rapists know their victims, almost
And then
all
the-
of them.
and that's actually not too surprising,
Yeah.
because and it also goes and talks about that in another study of hunter-gatherer aspects.
Mm.
So there, in a study, they talked about how we are breaking. It kind of breaks down into the aspect of when we became civilized, when we had men go out and gather and hunt and all that, and then we had women that stayed as homemakers. The male watched, hunted, and they talk about that in the aspect of the male serial killer, the MSK. They will go out of their way to hunt prey.
So this
Usually
is
strangers,
this is
usually people.
this is tapping into that primal.
And some people talk about that, tapping into that primal Hinduistic nature. Because another
Yeah.
thing is, too, most female serial killers kill to better their own lives financially, not for
Right.
sexual pleasure. And although we do have a case of that, which is Eileen Ronos, I'm never going to say her name right, everyone. Whoever's hearing me say it and you want to go ahead and eat me alive for it, please feel free to. But she became, and I didn't want to mention her too much, but I want to go ahead and at least say her out loud right now, because she's one of the few that actively hunted prey, almost hunted her victims. And she used various methods to go and dispatch. But we also, just a little bit more of a little bit more information. So there and a study from Murphy, Ho, Bowers, and Flattery in 2015. Most female serial killers, FSKs, suffer some type of physical or sexual abuse. Childhood illness, substance abuse were prevalent. But that also talks about how that happens a lot in most serial killer cases. We'll see. And one of the odder things, too, is things like head trauma. And we'll go on, and that doesn't get mentioned too often, but it's definitely one of those things to kind of keep in mind. Most FSKs will have an education, most of them will have a higher education. Then we'll see that some are actually reported to be, and this one was a little bit weird to me that this would even be questioned, above average or average attractiveness. I have no idea why the hell that's even brought into the light of it. But if you really come to think about it, and we'll mention one or two serial killers like that too, can you be too pretty to be called a murderer?
So, is it because they are so well educated that they think that they're able to get away with it, and that's why? And they typically, most female serial killers, as you had mentioned earlier, do this over a longer period of times. Is that why?
That's actually one of the funnier things about that, because in another study by Heather Silvio, it's a theoretical consideration of female sexual predators, serial killers in the United States. She actually mentions overall female serial killers act alone, often mature, careful, deliberate, socially adept, and highly organized. They usually attack victims in their home or place of work and tend to favor a specific weapon, like ingesting poison, lethal injection, or suffocation. Female serial killers acting in partnership tend to be younger, aggressive, vicious in their attack, sometimes disorganized, and usually unable to carefully plan. They generally attack victims in diverse locations and tend to use guns, knives, and/or torture, usually unable to carefully plan. They generally attack victims in diverse locations and tend to use guns, knives, and/or torture.
Now, do men switch their weapons? Because I thought that was not a thing.
It
There are
depends.
moments of that, and we will, and you
Depends.
can, and you'll actually go and see cases of that. Give me one sec. Okay.
Yeah. So, to give some insight here,
Go for it.
I have worked with mental hospital staff, past, and have been hospitalized myself. So I want to give
Yes,
some of the insight
please.
that they have given. When it comes to serial murders, men tend to be, more aggressive because they aren't thinking about the implication of murder, but instead about what it will do for them. So if they find that a certain method is no longer doing it for them, they might start to go more frequently to try and get something out of it, or switch weapons to see if that will help. Whereas with female killers, they're doing it more to get rid of something that is bothering them, and everything else is an afterthought. So
they're more reactive,
it's whatever's
and then
convenient most of the time.
so
Like,
so it would
they
be safe
plan
to
it out very carefully,
right.
and then from there kind of
But
move.
but do they plan it out afterwards or before more?
No, and that's kind of the thing about that one. Think about that, and what the research stated. Female serial killers will take a moment if they're acting alone. They're usually known to be more deliberate, and they're known to be more careful about what they're doing. And anyone that's usually been caught, they usually won't just admit to it straight off the bat. You'll actually have a lot of MSKs pop up. For example, Edward Kemper. Kemper, when he had finished up what he was doing with his mother and his mother's friend, he
Turned
left.
himself in.
But afterwards, he turned himself in. The guilt literally consumed him for a while. Then we have a case like BTK, that the idiot went and put in a floppy disk and actually asked the police, "Hey, if I send you this floppy disk, can you trace it?" And the cops literally did, "No, no, not at all." And what happened? He sent the damn floppy disk, and he got caught. So, with that in mind, one thing that I want to go and mention is that, again, FSKs usually kill for profit. And that is actually one of the things that kind of spooked me out a little bit. You'll see that there's usually husbands, maybe, and children. Children are victims consistently of SSKs, and that happens a lot. We deal with what would be called angels of death, people that are supposed to be caretakers, people that are supposed to be, there for medical help, that are slowly killing people left and right. And with that, let's go and talk about one of
Before you
and I
before
yeah.
you start that, we got a couple of comments from 62 Grandma. It makes sense.
Oh, sure.
But it seems like there seems way more personal on a way that men aren't comfortable with. That's kind of what you had mentioned on Frogs.
Yeah.
And grandma, that I will definitely go and say that is 100%. You go and you see that there are people that when you it's a desire to feel power. You see, when you're dealing with a male serial killer, that power is usually brought to them by sex, Hinduistic acts, that that feeling of domination. But with the female serial killer, she's in power now because she's controlling if you live or die. She may not physically be harming you with her fist, but you just ate something that had a little bit of arsenic in it. Or maybe when you were sleeping, I decided to go and stab you in your neck. That type of stuff. And
Second comment we have, Cheshire Mad. I'm curious where Elizabeth Bathory fits into this conversation.
Miss Baffray. So Elizabeth is infamous for being the Duchess of Blood. This Duchess who actually killed young maidens and bathed in their blood. This actually happened. It is an unknown amount of number of what her kill count finally was. But now we're looking at Hinduists. A Hinduistic pleasure. She enjoyed hurting those girls.
And it also kind of ties in indirectly into the family killer side of things, because pretty much all of her victims were staff and servants of her own manor.
People that she knew, people that she had power over, to the point that you're not real, you're a servant. So your life, some petty girl that I just paid money for, you belong to me. So when you come to think of that, we're starting to kind of compare it to a lot of the other scarier aspects. And with that, there is a serial killer that we'll go and mention, an FSK, that kind of falls into that line. But I'll get to that one in a second. So one that I actually want to go and talk about real quick, called the Angel of Death. She was a nurse. Kristen Gilbert. Now, she's actually really well known because she was a nurse for Veterans Affairs. Now, she had a savior complex. Kristen would go and inject epinephrine, huge amounts of epinephrine into people, which would be untraceable. It would literally go and cause heart attacks. And guess who would pop up just in time to save her victims?
Hmm.
Catherine. Not all the time. A lot of the time, she would mess up and she would wind up killing somebody. But she did that for the thrill, the hero complex of being able to go and get that done. Now, when we go, we have here we go. That's I guess more about it too. So it's unknown how many people she's killed, but right now I believe that she has three that are registered to her, and three counts of first degree murder, one count of second degree murder, and two counts of attempted murder.
Wait, that's
And
it?
she is now
I thought she had a lot more under her belt.
she's one. Remember, this is just one of the few, and
Okay.
she actually has four people. And one thing that I want us to go and talk about is, and this is going to be something prevalent that you'll see in Angels of Death: elderly victims.
Hmm.
Mm,
Two of her
Yeah.
victims were in their 60s. Then we go, we have someone else in their 40s, and then someone else in their 30s. But Angels of Death have this desire, this need. They'll usually go for those who can't help themselves, people that are physically unfit to protect themselves, people that are mentally unfit to protect themselves, people that they can get away with hurting and that they can't speak back. Again, watching their steps to keep themselves from getting caught. So, and one thing too that I actually wanted to go and talk about is in the same study that talked about their the the preciseness of a female serial killer. In these categories, team they go and they break them down in teen killers and sexual predators. Teen killers representing one third of all female serial killers come in three forms: male female teams, female female teams, and family teams. The male female is the most common, and those when they're male female, almost every single action, every single murder that they'll commit will be sexual.
because of the
There'll be some
man.
type, and there you go. And now that's what we're falling into. And then when we kind of jump into it, usually females that fall into that, they're usually young, about 20 years of age,
Right.
and that their murder spree usually lasts as a year. They usually get
Hmm.
caught quickly. Why is that? Is it because there's a man involved that they're just kind of jumping around doing things?
I'm surprised that they're able
Then,
to make it for that long, though. I figured it would be
well,
far more like
well, you'd be shocked
disastrous.
because if you really come to think about it, let's go and let's go and think about one of the other famous cases. John Wayne Gacy. Gacy was killing
Hmm.
people for years. He had 35 victims to his name, and he got caught because he was stupid. And
Mm.
it literally got to the point he had filled up his whole crawl space with bodies before they finally figured out, oh wait, he's putting folks in the walls, and now he's putting people in the river because he literally had no space to put them anyplace else. So it's one of those things. And then we'll also go and talk about how all female teams tend to be active for up to 2 years, and the members are usually in their mid 20s.
Mm.
Family
Hmm.
teams average a year, and the female members are typically young, about 20 years of age. For all three categories, the average victim count is 9 to 15, and methods vary. It's usually not the same type of method.
Hmm. That's really
But
strange that they're changing up their weapon choice. Like, because so often when you hear about, I know I am only coming from this from like SVU and like TV shows, so I'm sure my information
yeah,
is not accurate. But it's like whenever
no,
you
no.
hear about having multiple weapons, it's like, oh, then that means that there's multiple people with multiple.
I I can chime in on that one,
Oh,
but
please
finish.
do, please do.
Oh, it's well, certain. This is especially true of male serial killers, where they start out and they're kind of experimenting as they go. They might switch up weapons or methods because they're trying to find the right way to do what they're doing.
As they feel
Yeah.
comfortable in
Oh.
getting to where they need to. But again, one of the key differences between the male and female killer: females aren't there for the high of the kill. Most of the time, they're there for financial benefit. That's why there's so many black widows. That's why families will die with insurance policies put on them. And one big thing too, and one of the bigger differences between female serial killers and males is that a lot of female serial killers kill children. and that happens a lot more often than what people go and think. Um, oh, and and believe it or not, female serial killers are considered serial monogamous, with 44% of them being married on an average of 2 to 7 times.
Wow.
Hmm. Then we
Interesting.
also going to have, what was that?
Interesting. Yeah.
And that's a little bit odd when you come to go and think about it, because you know how they're always talking about like, oh, the loners and stuff like that, blah blah blah. But yet we have people that are considered monogamous, people that need to be in a relationship.
Now,
And one of,
is this
yeah,
because they need it on an emotional level, or is it needed because they're trying to engulf themselves?
well, you know, I am of the mindset evil has a way of enjoying to hide in plain sight. And you'll see that with a lot of male serial killers, they had families that they loved, people that they spoke about with care. And when they asked their children, what do you think about what happened with your father? They're shocked. My dad would never do that.
Hmm.
But with a female serial killer, you're lucky if you actually find their kids and that they're not in a hole someplace.
Mm.
So that's kind of the weird part of that. Now, is there the propensity of sexual assault of FSK's families? Of course, but it usually happens when they're in pairs.
Hmm.
So another one that we'll go talk about is an elderly woman by the name of Helene Hegado. She is a poisoner, domestic servant, and from her date of arrest was 1851 in July. So this woman, she, and one of the things that I'll go and I'll mention, she was very good at making people trust her. She lost her mother at the age of 7, went to work with her aunts, and the first time that she was suspected of poisoning was by another priest, Friar Francois Ledrogue, in the nearby village of Guarn. So, in 3 months between the 28th and the June 28th and October 3rd, 7 members of the household died suddenly, including the priest himself, his aging mother and father, and her own visiting sister, Anna. Her parents' sorrow and pious behavior were so convincing she was not suspected. Coming shortly after the cholera epidemic of 1832, the deaths may have been put down to natural causes. So all of a sudden, she was off the hook, and she knew what to do. Now, that was the weird thing, because when she worked as a cook in Auray and Pontville and Lorraine and Pont Louis, oftenly people would fall ill and die. Among her most infamous murders is a child, Marie Breg, who died at Chateau de Soyer in May 1841, 10 years and 1 month before her final arrest. Most victims died of symptoms corresponding to arsenic poisoning, though she was never caught with arsenic in her possession. There is no record of suspected deaths from late 1841 to 1849, but a number of her employers later reported deaths. She was apparently a kleptomaniac and was caught stealing several times. What does that make us fall into again? Financial betterment,
Hmm.
making sure that she's able to take care of herself using poisons,
Hmm.
and attacking people that trusted her. These these almost kind of patterns that kind of build up into what builds the FSK.
Okay, so you've mentioned FSK, you've mentioned family killers. What is the difference between them? Can they overlap, or are they just.
Well, remember, a family killer is a family that kills male,
Yeah.
female, children. Sometimes they're all involved in hunting a victim, and
Okay.
and eliminating someone. Now, there's lots of famous cases about stuff like that, and we have a case like that in. I think I believe it's in Scotland. You don't quote me on this one because I'm not sure. That it was they're called the cannibal family. That they lived in caves, and they would literally go and attack travelers,
I'd heard
beat
about
them,
that.
and eat them, and go and bring them down. Now, there's there's legend to it. Some people say they were cannibals. Some say that that was just the media and all that, trying to go and make a big thing about it because they were seen as monsters when they went and they found out.
Hmm.
Fun little bit of
But-
trivia for y'all out there. That was indirectly an inspiration for the film The Hills Have Eyes.
That is correct.
Oh.
So, also to go and mention another one. Now, this is where the study got a little bit difficult for me. Trying to find lesser known female serial killers is actually quite hard because when you come to it, those that are captured, they usually captivate the public eye. Everyone wants to know what the fuck happened. So we have a case of Juana Barraza. Barraza is a Mexican serial killer, but she was also a professional wrestler. And she was actually dubbed La Mata Viejita, or the old lady killer. So she was sentenced to 759 years in prison. And she has an estimate of victims of 24 to 49. Now, this is one of the things I want to go and mention. Barraza strangled and bludgeoned. We are moving away from the arsenic poisoners. And we're starting to go and fall into females that felt comfortable in their body. She was strong. She was physically capable. And I hate to say it, which this goes and falls into homophobia and transphobia, especially in Latino countries. They believed Barraza to be a transvestite prostitute. So the Mexican government launched full-out offenses on sex workers, thinking that that's what it was. It was a real on-the-nose approach to a subject because she had short hair. She was physically strong, so in their minds, it's gotta be a guy, or but no, it sounds like a girl, so it's gotta be a trans person. And it led to this person getting away with so much more
Because of their
than what they should have.
ignorance.
Yeah.
And it literally got to the point that they believed that she had killed herself. So they were looking for fingerprints in the morgue, which was not the case. Barraza was going around taking people out. And one thing about her, too, is that she, almost all of her victims, 60 or over, and they lived alone. So it was one of those things to kind of keep in mind, She, it's Barraza felt that her hurting the elderly, those that needed or that were in trouble, was doing them a service. You don't have to suffer anymore.
Right.
The-
Yeah.
Because, that makes tons of sense. Again, that angel of death thing kind of falling into mind. You won't suffer anymore. I'm here to take it away.
So
So,
a couple of
yeah.
comments from the chat. We have from Cheshire Mad. That's a really great question. What typically motivates family killers?
Family killers. There are studies that family killers are usually dragged on by the male of the household. And he will push them by fear, giving them accolades for their cruelty. And all of a sudden, that dehumanization will kind of fall into the family itself and become this grotesque creature. But when you look at the female being the one that's pushing that, you usually don't see family killers led by females because female killers usually kill their families. And that's that weirdness of that. What else you got?
And the second comments that the Cheshire Mad made. Okay, so if you asked me how a wrestler killed their victims, I'd have gone with something as physical as strangling and bludgeoning, which
There you go.
makes a lot of sense.
Strangling and bludgeoning, because she has some oomph to her. She wasn't very tall, but she was built, and I believe that her wrestler name. If you guys would like to go and do a little bit of reading up on her as well. Let me see if I find it in my notes. Forgive me, I've got a million things open here.
No. It actually makes a lot of sense because so many females, they choose those other things because they are not strong. They're not able to use that physical prowess that most male serial killers have. So it makes sense.
but don't let that trick you though, because if you really go look at a lot of MSKs, you'll have MSKs that will go out of their way to go and attack people that they feel that they can overpower. They'll try to go and attack women when they're alone. They'll try to attack children. It's very rare that you'll see an MSK attack a full grown man larger than he is as their potential victims
Right.
because they know that they'll fight back, which
Yeah.
is the reason why we have cases. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh, I just had to say, like, I have to go right now.
Not a
Oh.
problem.
Oh, no worries. But thank you for joining in. We appreciate you.
Good to be here.
All right, we'll see you around, hopefully.
We'll see
Yeah.
you next time.
Yeah, let's actually jump to commercial
See
real
ya.
fast.
All right, then, guys, we're going to go and take a break. Get yourself something to drink, and we'll see you in a few minutes.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Yeah. You're
Oh, no, he's
welcome.
there.
Thank you for having me. See you around. Bye.
Give me 1 second. I'm going to open up the window here. I got to pee. So, yeah. So, what do you? So, what are you thinking? Is it sounding good? I feel good. I wish I had more serial killers to go and talk about because it was so much harder to go find information on them. But it is what it is. I was like, we'll do some. I swear, and I said I haven't gone to some of the good ones that we're about to go and hit. I'm about to fuck you guys up in a minute. So let me know when you want to go and hit it. And welcome back to Something Wicked This Way Comes. I'm your host, Zanaris, or as some of you know me as Daniel. I am your DM on Thursdays, and today I am your researcher, I am your detective, I am your interviewer. And here with me are Francisco and Emily, my editors, and they're just here hanging. So,
Yeah.
in the beginning, we had a chance to go and talk about modus modus of operations, the modus operandi. We talked about the reasoning behind it. Let's go talk about some of the different cases. And everybody knows Eileen. Eileen was that famous hitchhike killer,
Hmm.
shooting guys and all this other stuff. But I actually found a woman that gave me the heebie-jeebies, and I would like to go inside to talk to you about her. Her name, Sada. Sada Abe, a Japanese geisha. Sada comes from a good family. She begins work as a geisha, and then later on, we won't go into too much details. She does become a prostitute. She becomes a sex worker. She contracts syphilis, and as time passes by, she actually finds a lover that is married. Now, the thing about that is that things get odd. His name is Kichizo Ishida. They meet in Tokyo in 1936. Kichizo Ishida is 42 at the time, and they get to know each other. They get to start passing some time together. Now, it got a little odd. In April 23rd, they go and they meet for a prearranged sexual encounter at a tea house. They make love and they stay together for 4 days. Sada is enraptured to the point that they start making love like rabbits all the time, every place that they can. To the point that one day Sada pulls a knife, puts it to the base of his genitalia, and threatens to kill him. Ishida looks at her, smiles, and takes it as a good thing. And they go on a weekend getaway together. And that weekend getaway, they begin to experiment with asphyxiation.
Mm.
I'm not going to go into the full details of it because there is a lot of hearsay. There's a lot of things that are going to say one thing, and there's some sites that say other things. And any type of article that I read, kind of, it just didn't really go and make. It just didn't make logistical sense to go and talk about.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second. Where did I put that note? So sorry.
Slacking.
must have-
You're
I know.
slacking.
I'll be right back.
But I find it fascinating that I still keep coming back to the family killers because it's level of control over level of control, and it's horrifying to me because
Welcome to live television.
Did
so, after they have these moments, they are together, and at around 2 a.m., they spend a little bit more time together. She wraps 2 scarves around his neck and strangles him to death. But that's not where it gets weird. She then begins to, as she kills him, she cuts off his genitalia, wraps them up in a magazine page, puts them in her pocket because she could not keep his head or his body. So she wanted to keep something that brought back the most memories.
Mm.
Now, in blood, she writes on the sheets, Sada Kichi Futari Ki. Sada Kichi, together, on Ishida's left thigh and on the bedsheet. She then carved Sada, the character for her name, into his left arm. And then she put Ishida's underwear on. And her comment when they found her with Ishida's genitalia was, because I couldn't take his head or body with me, I wanted to take the part of him that brought back to me the most vivid memories.
wow.
She walked around like that for 3 days by you before she got caught.
And it's pretty common for serial killers to collect body parts or some sort of a trophy.
Trophies.
It's not only, and people use the term trophy. It's not always necessarily a trophy.
Of course.
They'll use it in a way like Daniel said, to trigger memory, the same way that you or I would say, hold on to a ticket stub of a movie we liked. Yeah.
Or you go and you have people that will go and collect shoes. So you'll see that BTK had a bad habit of picking up people's driver's licenses and things like that. So now I wanted to mention Sada because women are capable of violence, and that was the biggest thing that was looked at in all the research I did. Every scientific article wanted people to go and realize, even though the ages were similar, even though the victim count was similar, we had to understand the key differences in the fact that that they use different methods. They usually kill people that they know, but they are still capable of horrific violence. And on that, we will go and talk about, and she's something, Catherine Knight. Catherine Knight. Hold on to your pants, everybody, because it gets funny.
Oh boy.
Catherine Knight is a well-known Australian serial killer. Well, not serial killer, forgive me. And I'm so sorry. Allow me, because we are going to go and take a step away from serial killers right now. We're just going to go into female killers. And there's a reason for this. Because I want to mention it, because I need you all to understand the ability of violence that a woman is capable of. She was married 3 times, had children. She slit a puppy's throat in front of her husband to make a point.
Okay, I'm
When
gonna pause you
she-
right there. That was the first time my heart was like, no! Through everything that you said, once you mentioned the puppy.
You're ready for everything else, is what it was.
I was physically prepared for everything else until you said that.
Oh no, I get it. It messes you up. All of a sudden, it's just like, she did what now? So, and you know, and it's some of the things that we need to go look at. The other husbands, they left because of how physically violent she was, out of fear that they were gonna get killed. And Catherine, when she found her dream job, as she put it, she became a meat cutter. She hung her tools of the trade above her bed, just in case she needed them. Literally an array of knives over her own bed.
That's sanitary.
So, Catherine, I will do us all a favor, and I won't mention victim names and stuff like that because that's not what we're here for. Catherine, although I did mention Ishida, but I mentioned Ishida because of the fact that Sada carved her name into him, and I thought it was important for us to go and see the breach of the mind, almost. What would bring someone to do that?
Well, love, it sounded like.
Love, or was it just very strong feelings of lust? All of a sudden, I can't have you because I know you're married. I know you're gonna go home.
That's
Not today.
That's fair.
It's one of those things. We have to be careful what we call love.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
in a
and-
way, it
and-
probably was love with lust, just because
Like a very
they
perverse
didn't want
form
to
of it, yeah.
refuse it. They didn't want to lose
and-
it.
For anyone that has ever loved someone so strongly that you thought to yourself, I would die without you. Just think of that in the inverse, everybody. I kill you if you leave. So it's one of those things. Now, Catherine, with her third husband, the fella knew that she wasn't too right. Keep in mind. And he told his boss, if I don't show up, most likely Catherine killed me. Well, he got home, and as he got home, he was with Catherine, and they made love, and then she stabbed him in his sleep, and he tried to get away. Now, we're gonna fast forward to when the police arrived. The police arrived to go and see Catherine comatose, but they also get to see the front of the door, where it looks like as though the body was dragged while it was still fighting. Catherine skinned her husband, put the skin up on a meat hook, removed pieces of his body and removed his head, and cooked them.
Oh,
And as she cooked them, she put them on trays at the table with little name tags for his family, for who was going to sit where to consume. When they found her, she had taken 23 pills, and in the beginning, she was trying to say that she just didn't remember it. Catherine's ability for violence is extraordinary. To be able to go and take someone that supposedly she loved to mutilate like a piece or cattle, really,
Hmm.
is mind boggling. Now, she always had a history of violence. What snapped? And that's something I want us all to go and think about. What brought Catherine to do that? Why hurt him that way?
I also think the husband knowing, hey, if I die, I'm
tell
gonna
you.
go home. I'm gonna go home, sleep with my wife,
As-
where she
as
keeps her
someone-
knives.
And as someone who, honest to goodness, likes crazy, I'm gonna tell you guys right now. Even then, I would have stood my ass home. But, and one thing I actually want to go and talk about: female killers. Can they be too pretty? Is this pretty girl too capable of killing somebody? And that one, my prime example of that one is going to be what is called the yandere killer, the yandere stabbing.
Oh,
It
boy.
is a Japanese girl called Yuka Takaoka. She was 21 years old. And mind you, this is a thing. So, she, I'll go on to kind of help you along with this. They were part of a hostess club type jam. She meets a fella, and they're in love and all that, yada yada yada. Now, and this is from a Reddit article, so I'm going to help you with this one. Hostesses clubs are famous in nightlife industry of Eastern Asian countries. They primarily hire female employees, and to go and serve drinks and stuff like that. They're not really sex workers, well, kind of, but you know what I mean.
They probably didn't
No.
discourage it, but they weren't
They're basically modernized geishas.
right.
Yeah, and then we have that Takaoka had actually begun a relationship with a gentleman by the name of Luna, who was also a very famous host club guy. Had lots of fans and one of those things. So on May 23rd, Luna returned home late, and even though Tanaka was up anticipating his return, now Takaoka had recalled Luna to be a bit callous towards him before the incident. On that same day, she allegedly found a photo of him with another woman, which could have been anybody because the guy was famous for that. She didn't mention the photograph or anything like that. She waited for him to fall asleep. She slices him open in the abdomen with a kitchen knife. Now, the thing is, one thing that she goes and that happens here is that when the police arrive to her in the journal, there's some notes written in blood that say, "I like you, and I like you so much, I wanted to kill you." It was the one thing I put order in preparing a new life with him, referring to the knife she used. I didn't want to go anywhere, so I sat down at the outside staircase. I did not call emergency services because I intended to die after watching him. Now, Luna survives, by the way. And the weird thing is that he sort of forgives her.
Huh.
And she becomes so famous after this. She begins to have followers that
That doesn't
follow her on Instagram
that
and
doesn't surprise
everything
me.
else.
You've heard of where people in prison, there's catalogs where you can write to people in prison.
Oh yeah.
So this does not surprise me in the least.
And up until the day of his execution, Ted Bundy received fan mail, love letters.
Richard Ramirez, I believe, got married, didn't he, or something like that along those lines?
I think so, yeah.
Yep.
So, all this to say, FSKs, key differences, usually poisoners,
Yep.
willing to wipe out people that they know personally,
To better their
but then we
lives.
to better their lives. But then we also fall into the strange cases of horrific violence. Were they serial killers? No. But they committed acts so grotesque that the main detective that found the Catherine Knight murder scene actually wound up having a panic attack, and to this day is still seeing a therapist for that.
Mm.
Imagine for a moment walking into a home to see someone butchered like an animal. So, with all these wicked things and all these wicked people, I'm so glad that you were able to go and sit with me and have a moment to go and talk about the darker things in life. And I appreciate you for the time that you took on Mother's Day out of all days to sit with us and to listen. I look forward to any ideas that you guys might want us
Yes.
to go and talk about. Anyone that you might want me to go and interviews. Anyone that might want to go and be part of this to go and be able to go and bounce questions off of. Please feel free. We have a potential episode that we're going to be talking about some of the wicked things of Puerto Rico. El Cerro de Maravilla. The serial killer, Tony Bicicleta. The car outside that just sounded like a door exploded. So, these. So,
So, shout out to Teal Wall. Thank you so much for your suggestion because you have prompted a full segment of wickedness in Puerto Rico.
we will also be talking about El Masacre de Ponce and the lesser known Masacre de Moca. So there are actually quite a few things. Oh, and there's a possibility of a potential interview of a spree
Ooh.
killer that Francisco and I actually knew personally. Who went to school with us in high school. Oh, the weird world that we live in. But thank you so much for taking the time to sit with us today to go and listen to all the mad l- talk of all these horrible things and all these horrible people. I hope that I was able to go and make your day a little bit better. And I hope I was able to go and get you the little bit of a happiness that talking about these evil things do. Be good to each other. Do not hurt each other. Mental illness is very real.
Yeah.
And if there's ever a moment that you feel yourself falling down into the path of intrusive thoughts, seek help.
Yes.
There's no shame. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in,
Yes.
everybody.
If you are interested, as Daniel has mentioned, in our wow, in our Discord server, somewhere wicked, some way. Oh my gosh, something
Something
wicked?
Wicked?
This way comes. We will put a link to where you can reach out for any mental health that you need. So please,
Absolutely.
thank you.
And we look forward to seeing you again in a little bit of wickedness. Have a good day and take care.
Bye.
Bye,
Happy
everybody.
Mother's